Strange Journey, the story of Rocky Horror. Now, as a drummer, I have played drums in the Rocky Horror musical probably 100 times, right?
Nice.
And so I thought, okay, well, and I've talked about that on Gig Gab over the years. So I thought, of course, this will be a Gig Gab thing. And I went to see the movie. The first thing that was really interesting to me was in line for the movie. Obviously, there were other Rocky Horror fans, interested people around me. I didn't even know there was a musical, was what most of these people said. Everybody around me, no one around me in line knew that there was a musical of this.
You mentioned this to me last week, and I said, I just thought it was just the movie.
Right. Yeah. Well, it turns out the musical came first. It was created by a guy named Richard O'Brien. His son Linus O'Brien directed and produced the documentary. They explain how this started as a musical. It did very well in London. It was like immediately sold out as soon as they kind of started. Obviously, they created it first, but once it hit, it kind of became this. There was a buzz about it, and it was hard to get tickets and all those things. But they eventually brought it to L.A. and showed it at the Roxy Theater, which is a stage, but has kind of a theatrical. It feels like a theater and a place where you could go see a rock show. And Lou Adler saw it there and said, "Okay, I can make a movie of this."
Okay.
And so he brought people around to kind of buy into the vision and buy into the project and all that stuff. Or while it was in L.A., people like Mick Jagger and other folks with money were like, "Oh, hey, I want to make a movie of this. I just want to buy the rights from you." And Lou Adler told him, "Don't do that." And he said, "Why not?" This is because then you don't get to own it.
Yeah.
And so they produced it themselves. And so they did. They produced this movie on a shoestring budget. It was less than $1 million to produce this movie. And they were able to keep many of the same cast that had been in the musical. Now they released the movie. It flops for the most part. But yeah, they previewed the movie in Santa Barbara, California. And Santa Barbara, they pointed out, is an interesting town because it's full of half college kids and half senior citizens.
Yeah.
Okay. So they watched as people were coming out of the film early, and mostly the people that were coming out of the film when the film finally ended were the college students. That's who was left. So they're like, okay. So, but the smart thing was they were just paying attention. They were failing and learning, right?
And capturing the data.
Even if it was just anecdotal data, right? So, but this is the value of anecdotal data, and the plural of anecdote is not data. So anecdotal information is maybe the right way to say this.
Yeah.
So they noticed, okay, college students, all right, okay, so maybe there's maybe that's our market. Younger people might get this and be into it. And it was built to be this campy thing. It was built to be tongue in cheek might not be the right word, but they knew what they were creating, sort of.
Sure.
And so they said, okay, great. College students. All right. They're trying it. And theaters are like, well, I don't know. Finally, they said, all right, well, what if we show it at midnight?
Yeah.
That this way, we're not taking money out of your pocket. You can run three shows.
Yeah.
We're just adding a thing, and all you got to do is pay a projectionist, and you probably sell enough tickets to offset that cost. And so they did this in 2 theaters to start: the Waverly in New York City, and ironically, the Paramount in Austin, which it turns out is the theater that I was sitting in watching the world premiere of this, which was cool. Right. And so they would, these 2 theaters agreed to run it Friday, Saturday night. And so they kind of, the partners in the thing said, okay, well, you call on Monday mornings, you call New York, I'll call Austin, and we'll just find out, see how it goes, see how it's been. So they're like 3 weeks in, Lou Adler calls Austin on the 3rd Monday or whatever and says, how'd it go? And about 50 people for each performance. And Lou's like, okay. I don't know. And the guy says, Yeah, but here's something interesting. It's the same 50 people.
Coming back.
Yeah. And Lou said, okay, that is important information. And they were finding the same thing in New York. And they're like, all right, what we need to do is just put this out there and let the right people find it. And of course, putting it in the right markets, that would have the right kind of people. And sure enough, it today now, of course, is the longest running movie ever. And I can't imagine what it will take for something to beat that because it still runs every weekend somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
And not just somewhere, many somewheres, right?
Yeah. It's pretty cool.
And so they didn't find their audience. The audience found them. But it's just like the idea of paying attention to what your pivot is going to be with your business, right? And, this was 2 theaters. This is April of 1976. It was in 2 theaters. By 1978, it was in 50 theaters, right? Wow. Now it's in hundreds of theaters, right? Yeah. The shout outs, all of that audience participation stuff, that didn't start until September of 1976. The whole idea of wearing costumes didn't start until Halloween performance. And then, of course, it was like, well, we could do this for every performance. And it developed a community. And, they said something interesting. I mean, there's a cult around this, right? I mean, there's a whole community. They say how much
revenue it's generated in...
They did not. No, but Richard O'Brien did say, it turns out that creating something like this is a heck of an annuity.
I could imagine, man.
Right?
Yeah.
Now it's in, 200 to 300 theaters every weekend. There's more in October. They'll, create theaters for it to play in Octobers. Yeah. But, they said something which really, is you don't make cults. Audiences make cults.
Yeah, that's true.
And once I've been involved in things that started like this. I was involved in a production called Bitter Pill years ago, and we put it together. It was this weird thing where there was music and live performance, and it's very hard to describe, but it was basically live acted music videos. That's not nearly enough of a description of it, but that's as close as we need to get here. And it was the same thing. We booked a 3-week run. We put this thing out. After the first night, the rest of the run was sold out. Half of those tickets were sold to the same people.
Yeah,
they wanted to see it. And then the rest were people clamoring to get in the door to this place. And it was like, okay, wait a minute. We've got something here.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, there were too many different creative minds at work, and there was a huge clash, and it never really went anywhere after that. But
I looked it up. So it's totals about $500 million in revenue, $140 million in lifetime box office. 200 million, these are estimates, home media, DVD, VHS, all that stuff.
Sure.
50 million merchandise sales, licensing and live performances, 75 million, soundtrack sales, 35 million, 500 million. That's a lot.
That's a lot of money.
The lesson here is, obviously the pivot, everything else, but you want to own your content. You can share it on social media if you want.
Yeah,
you can share it. But you must own it